The fast bowler, Beirut, and the house track that wouldn't die. If being witness to the singular moment of a nation's outpouring of agonised relief through the firing of a missile at a bunch of sticks, or finding yourself at another time rapping with an Islamic social commentator during the bombing of Lebanon, or, elsewhere still, having a corporate giant threaten to squash the techno tune you've put out in celebration of a favourite athlete is of interest to you, then read on. All things are connected in the strangest of ways. Of course, if you want to jump to the part of this article where I talk about Cricket Australia, CA, trying to stop me putting out my new dance track celebrating the awesomeness of Scott Boland, then you can click here. Still, I'd love you to read on to learn about the song in the full perspective of sticking it to COVID, sticking it to England, and sticking it to the man. Rattling sticks first. In 2021, as Mitchell Starc crossed the chalk for the first delivery of the summer, he did more than any preceding Australian opening bowler had in that yearly ritual. It's not hard to say that, for a large part of Australia's population, this initial salvo is heavy in emotional symbolism. In normal circumstances, as the bowler steams in and whomps their oversized chew down on the crease, they cross the December line as well. Sending the pill hurtling forward, their act lifts the emotional yoke of the past year's toil from the shoulders of the populace. When the ball completes its journey into the bowler's hand as part of a performative about face and stride back to the mark, so too the season officially turns towards the one of celebration. In that instant, the eyes of the people are also drawn in the direction of the new year. Most of the time, the ball just whizzes past the ear of the man standing at the other end, prompting a collective ooh, a promise of triumph so near but not yet, an ooh, followed by a lull filled with the satisfaction of knowing that now, with the past year jettisoned, we can eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we diet. The ebbs and flows in the game's drama over the coming summer, the droning commentary as familiar to the ear as blowflies, and the sporadic explosions of chaotic excitement bursting from the broadcasts, are the backdrop of the season to come. Yet Starc, with the ball in hand on this occasion, carried something far greater with him. He held with him a promised release from the enduring agonies of a nation. It was as if, in letting fly that first delivery, there was the possibility that he could exercise knots around the nation's psyche, caused by another year of outbreaks, lockdowns, lives lost, political point scoring and the like. Pockmarked and scruffy-bearded, Starc bounded towards the crease on his heron-like legs, chest forward, clutching that red missive, while behind him the throng bubbled with a nervous excitement at just being able to stand together again to witness the theatre of the greatest and the most enduring athletic rivalry the country has. Starc castled the stump's first ball. When you listen to the crowd in that moment, not just cheering for a sporting achievement, but delivering an outpouring of 2 years' worth of emotion after being terrorised by a virus that overturned everything and shut everyone away from each other, it is visceral. It's a raw holding within it the frayed and desperate hope of a people still wrapped in the nervous anticipation that things could go south again and joy could be warehoused once more. A fear pulsing away in the background like a throbbing toe, portending the worst. Raw power, you might call it, and raw power certainly. You may have heard the one about the energy generated by a stadium full of people yelling at once. Tidbits from kids' scientific Did You Know books suggest that such an act can create enough electricity to boil an egg if channeled into a makeshift device hooked up to a battery on which a hopeful saucepan sits. Stark would have felt it on that day in 2021 as the adoration of the crowd was directed towards him. Rory Burns, the unfortunate batter, would have known he was cooked by that roar also. If not his egg, then definitely his goose was. Orchestra conductors perch themselves between audience and performer in not a dissimilar way to fast bowlers. Conductors do, in many cases, also have heads that resemble boiled eggs, possibly because they are known to be one of the longest living of all professions. Their combination of mentally stimulating work, light exercise that often looks like mid-morning pool calisthenics, and being in the direct path of the vibrations created by ensembles and more can't hurt. Certainly, if you sat in front of the pit at a classical performance and felt the hum of the cellos go through you, you'd likely draw the connection like I am, that being awash with these acoustics has to play a part in these musical Methuselahs hanging around. Try it with a live performance of Dvorak's Cello Concerto in B minor and report back. Front and centre of such musical showpieces, you're in a corridor of power, and with the surge going straight through you, you become a living battery cell filled with good vibrations. I've been on both sides of such electronic exchanges. As an audience member, I've been taken over by the manic fervour of a Manu Chao live show, where power cables, generated by the kinetic friction of the rhythm section, seemingly shoot out from the stage and plug into every listener, turning them into rapturous pogoing mannequins. And at the other end of the frequency range, lulled by the low, looping baritone of Archie Roach, I've been hypnotised with the rest of an audience and taken into a vision state where I've found myself sitting at the edge of a campfire as I've continued to hear Archie hum. As a singer, I've been lucky enough to experience what it is to be at the epicentre of power generation through music, and to be the focal point of that too. It's the ultimate buzz, it really is. I get why octogenarian rock stars keep chasing it, even if they create the spectacle of oversteamed turkeys fussing around the stage looking for their lost car keys. Take when my band Andorra played a peace festival in Leichhardt, Sydney, in support of the people of Lebanon and Palestine, who were suffering through one of their cycles of being bombed back to the Stone Age by Israel and co. From Andorra's rep for putting on festivals and music events with a social focus, I was asked by the organisers to arrange performers for the day. We also used the occasion to debut a song I'd written called Kaiser Trad Jazz. The track drew on the brilliant jazz stylings of our keyboardist Matt Campbell, and also featured a message of peace by leading Australian Islamic spokesperson Kaiser Trad. In my inimitable way, I'd arrived at singing to the crowd on that day by taking my self-amusement possibly too far. From wondering aloud about how something as incongruous as Kaiser Trad ad-libbing over jazz might sound, I was bound by my own creed that then had to make it so. My foolish fancy was to become a reality. Well, not all foolish. When the concept of the song took shape in my mind, the political reality of what was pushing people like Kaiser into the public spotlight guided what myself and Andorra created. Geopolitically, the world at the time was in a pressure cooker again, with the deep pulse of war threats drumming in our temples. The genocide of a generation of children denied medicine continued to play out diabolically in front of our eyes in Iraq, and opportunists were seizing the chance, as they do, to postulate for personal gain or shiv their enemies when no one was looking. Lebanon was, at this time, in the sights again, and, amongst all this, we as a band wanted to do our thing, which was not just to sing against the idea of more war in our words, but to find the voices of those being tarred by anti-Muslim rhetoric from above in an Australian context. We understood that people are people and just want their kids to have a safe, happy life. Most things beyond that are just bull. I reached out to Kaiser, who was, not unsurprisingly, sceptical at first of our intent and being dragged into the batty fever dream of my creations. Doing his own research, he determined that I checked out. He warmed to the idea when we explained that he could contribute, in his own words, alongside our plan to showcase the modern face of Muslim music in Australia, including the youth. I figured to throw in something of those lilting vocal melodies I'd come across and loved when tuning up and down the AM dial and landing on Middle Eastern music stations. I mean, why not? If you're going to go hard. What came of it was a track where I played a character who emceed throughout in a Tom Waitsian smoking room growl, while other performers from the Islamic diaspora in Australia featured throughout. We brought together the superb Arabic singer Manal Ibrahim, Lebanese-Australian hip-hop artist Susan Chammer, and Kaiser himself, who dreaded the idea of being recorded singing, but who was happy to orate some considered thoughts by rounding things out with a message of peace and understanding. It's really just madness, but it worked amazingly with the heart of everyone involved. Manel had laid down her vocals for us in a couple of takes in her lounge room after we were whisked to her house in a community member's four-wheel drive one afternoon. Susan preached in the studio of the Redfern Community Centre, where we had some cachet, and Kaiser recorded his piece in our makeshift studio in Smithy's music shop in Petersham, where my Andorra co-conspirator Eric Bellingham worked. From my flight of fancy over a politically orientated pun, the recording ended up meaning a lot to us all. Kaiser tells me that he revisits the recording still to this day as a comforting reminder and a delight of his own artistic journey. It was not all comfort at the time, though, not because we were not all on the same page, or because Kaiser was a man who had to get his track down and go, with the focus and brevity of Frank Sinatra on Golf Day. It was because, as we pressed play, war literally started. I was stunned by the prescience of the situation we were in, as Kaiser asked for a second during a level check to answer his phone. When he returned, he told us that aircraft had started flying over Lebanon and bombing Beirut. He was committed to finishing what we were doing, but had to keep taking breaks from recording the vocal part he was adding to take calls. Lebanon was being blown to pieces as we mixed and played backing tracks and parts and pulled our song together. I was sobered in the realization that what we were doing was anything but silly, despite the fun play on words I'd started out with and the chutzpah I'd used to see how that could go. We were recording something that preempted the destruction playing out on the other side of the world, with a counter through art, and with the words and expressions of those under psychological and legislative attack in our own country and physical attack elsewhere. Fast forward to the Peace Festival, and I was there front and centre as the first notes of my band struck in unison behind me. At such times we often see ourselves in the frame through observant memory, but on this occasion my experience was twofold. I got to see people's eyes light up as they felt themselves awash with the sonic energy my band was creating, and their delight as rhythm took them over. We'd never played such perfect unifying and powerful notes. I knew it. I experienced an awe as I tried to keep my attention on singing. As a unit, we had arrived at a peak brought together from years of practice and the unconscious understanding of players for the movements and improvisations of teammates. This, along with our individual hearts, energy, and the belief that brought us to such a place all combined. The audience were enveloped in the dome made by the power the music was putting out. I could see it travelling across them, like the time-lapse thaw of winter snow as the spring comes in and lights up the faces of flowers with the warmth of a brighter day. Sadly, we never got to have another experience like that. The band that made that magical resonant energy still needed support to continue. We needed the hope and the belief of someone else to get us on bills, give us some promo, keep the momentum going. In terms of the grunt, it had been all me for 4 years, doing 40 hours a week after work to open doors, create events, get us out there to get noticed. Not begrudging the rest of the band, of course. They worked and worked to get to that supreme point. While I agreed to do the heavy lifting, they provided the vehicle for my romantic and passionate ideas to come to life. I'm ever grateful and sorry I couldn't get us a step further. It was not for lack of trying through reaching out to everyone I could, every label, venue, station, mentor. "Go for it," scribbled Peter Garrett on the bottom of a form letter that said, "We apologise, but Peter is not in a position to reply." "Keep going and live your passion," wrote John Pilger on a book of poems I'd asked him to autograph, my poems that formed the basis of our songs. Despite the encouragement, we just didn't get the numbers through the doors to sell the pints that would mean we'd get a call back, and we never found our John Peel. Still, we'll never lose what we created with that audience, which brings me full circle. Cricket and the Roar. Oh, and a song I wrote about it. Click here to listen to Scobo, Scotty Boland. With the elegance of understatement, the 2021 Ashes really weren't great for England. I appreciate you, the reader, may not be a cricket buff, but let's say England went at 20 runs a wicket across the entire series. They got trounced. None more so than by Victorian paceman Scott Boland, the person who my song is about, and particularly his efforts in the third test of the series, which Cricket Australia has pushed me not to put out. Scott Boland got 6 wickets for 7 runs that day, unheard of. I still have the text messages I exchanged with friends on the day as it was happening in real time. It's a feat worthy of art. I've been writing some big, celebratory house music in recent years, in collaboration with a backroom whiz who likes to remain anonymous, and with vocal part contributions from my girlfriend. My girlfriend is a sports nut too, and was into the idea of doing something in honour of Scott Boland, so I recorded vocal parts for us both, created a beat template, and took a couple of outtakes of commentators going nuts over Scotty's wickets and sent them to my man behind the scenes. I contacted CA about the process I needed to follow to get approval for attribution, explaining that the radio station on which the commentator we had sampled worked told us copyright approval had to come from CA. So when CA came back and said they wouldn't license the audio, I was taken aback. It seemed like overkill for a song that was almost entirely my girlfriend's voice and mine over an original melody, with a smattering of commentary samples thrown in to add a bit of spice and uplift. I'd hoped it would be pretty straightforward to get a polite acknowledgement from Cricket Australia under fair usage, as well as from the agents of the commentators we'd hoped to use, and I hoped those commentators would get a chance to listen to the song, get the vibe, and give us some encouragement. This was because, while a house song about a cricketer is a bit left field, what we were creating was within a well-trodden path, with lots of contemporary examples of the same approach. Like popular Australian social media duo Shepmates, who use straight audio from cricket commentary and recreate it by miming to it. They have 1 million followers on Insta, have had their material reposted on CA channels, and have featured Australian cricketers and commentators on their show. It's fun. Fair play to them. But it straight up rips slabs of audio. Billy Birmingham made a career out of direct imitation of cricket commentators. The Australian cricket team even has a theme tune which, incidentally, was filched from a Henry Lawson poem and has a brazenly borrowed melody, the likes of which would make men at work clench their teeth. Not that anyone bats an eyelid. Anarchic Australian rock band Tism used direct samples of sports commentary in their songs Give Up for Australia and What Nationality is Les Murray at the height of their fame. Tism even do the theme tune to the radio show that the same commentators we were looking to sample work on. With all of the above, I didn't understand why CA would go ahead and block little old me. An Australian Lawyers Cricket Council exec member said if I could get proof that Scott was okay with it, then the inside word was that CA would soften. So I tried Scott Boland's agent and the agent of the commentators we wanted to sample, but after some initial sympathy, the lines went dead. I appealed to CA, of course, drawing on their own public statements about having a curiosity to listen, to celebrate the successes of athletes, to collaborate, to bring people together and develop partnerships that further the game. That's really everything our song is about. Being true to form with the music I've made with Andorra and Beyond, on Kaiser Trad Jazz, and a myriad of other projects I might write about somewhere else, but which wouldn't get their justice by just being listed to back up a point. CA came back with, "We don't create or work with third parties that create music about our team or our players. For instance, we are quite different from the AFL in that we don't have theme songs for our teams." Of all the sports played in Australia, cricket is actually the most musical from what I can see, in terms of iconic songs drawn from the game that have worked their way into the cultural fabric, and well-known songs focusing on specific players. Take Bradman by Paul Kelly or Shane Warne by Paul Kelly. Come On Aussie Come On, the band Six and Out made up of ex-cricketers who sing cricket-themed songs, and while not Australian, the favourite cricket-orientated song of my girlfriend and I, aside from the one we've just written of course, Champion by West Indian cricketer Dwayne Bravo. Dwayne has been smart enough to sidestep any copyright issues of governing bodies by just writing a song about himself. Well played, Dwayne. CA is of course dependent on continuing interest in cricket to ensure its existence. Only this week, media reports covered the fact that children are leaving competitive sport in droves. Sport survives by having role models for children to watch and want to emulate. Why CA would actively stop music getting out there, or indeed support it, in the interest of engaging young people especially, to connect with role models in the sport is beyond me. It seems they're wandering around like Johnny Bairstow, blithe to what is pending. For the record, while CA told me they don't do theme tunes, here is one for the T20 side for which Scott Boland plays as an example of why that isn't the case. CA argued with me again, saying, "Under Australian copyright law, there is no general doctrine of fair use. General commercial use for making a song does not qualify. If you are wanting to push ahead with the song using CA commentary, we've not granted permission for this. You should speak to a lawyer." This was at odds with the direction I was pointed in for information, not legal advice, by the Australian Lawyers Cricket Council. What it amounted to was CA saying things to me that are at odds with their own values, and the mountain of examples where a heap more liberties have been taken than what I sought, the end result being an inexplicable aim to suck the joy out of something pure of heart and done the right way. You don't need garlic to repel Dracula. Just tell him you're a lawyer. You can only do what you can do, so I re-recorded all the audio parts I had of the commentators and replaced them with an excitable commentator I will call Bitchy Renault. The new improved Scobo Scotty Boland doesn't lose any of the sentiment of our love of Scott and his feats, which the few samples contributed to, nor the roar of celebration that has accompanied them, which was our ambition all along. So, dear reader, don't take this as sour grapes from me or a misunderstanding of copyright law, etc. What I would love for you to take from this is an enjoyment of the song we've made, not the weeds of legalese that some would love to mire it in. Instead, here is Scobo Scotty Boland. I hope you can share it widely with everyone you know who loves cricket, loves Australian music, including big celebratory dance numbers, and who loves the roar.
Scobo!
Scotty Boland, bowling at the G.
Oh, what a beauty.
Scotty Boland.
Hard length, steaming in.
Scotty Boland. Shut the front door.
Victorian with the ball in hand.
Bowling at the J.
back sharply. Oh, wow!